Hey, hey, hey. We are live. And as always, I'm letting this kind of run a little bit because it has to hit all three platforms. And so if you're already seeing this immediately, welcome to the Fun Table, round 10, 10, I guess you could say, like X Japan does. My name is Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, and I'm glad everybody's here joining us for this Fun Table on Friday. And it's been an interesting week for myself. I'm actually a little bit under the weather, and have been. But like I was mentioning to one of my guests earlier, that's not going to stop the fun. And so we're going to continue on and do what we've been doing with these because I've been looking forward to this particular session for a while. And well, I look forward to all of them, to be honest. But this one's going to be an interesting mix. And I know that some of the people out there have been waiting for this, particularly if you're an Alice fan or if you're a jazz fan or if you're a skydiving fan, putting everybody together. I can see that the viewership's already starting to go. So let me just kind of check things out like I always do to make sure that we're looking good before I bring everybody in. And yep, there we go. So let me kind of leave that there. Okay. The other thing I can mention is that the Fun Table round 11, gosh, it's crazy. I think it's 11 rounds. It's going to be on Saturday next week at 7:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or Daylight Time, I should say. And that's moving just to accommodate some schedules. And then after that, we will be taking a bit of a break because, as many of you know, Alice will be going on their Chapter 3 leg of the Inside Out Tour. And that starts on October 8th. And I will be joining the band, opening up with interviews of a variety of guests. And so these fun tables won't resume until, I guess that would be maybe the 23rd of October, which is a Friday. And as long as guests are into it and I'm enjoying it, I plan on still doing this at least up until that week of the week before Thanksgiving. And then during the holidays, I'm not really sure because it's busy, but it's also 2020. So I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't have anything booked that far out. I just know up until the third Friday of November is kind of what I'm looking at. And at that point, I'll kind of, make a decision about what we do next. So thank you to Jules Wilcox, who was my interview guest on Monday. I enjoyed talking to her. Alone, her film has been out for a week now, and I know it's getting really, really good notices. I think it was like 94% positive on one site, and I rewatched it after we did the interview, and yeah, it was really nice talking to her, and everything worked out well. So yeah, and if you're not familiar with the Fun Table sessions, this is when I bring different guests that I've had a chance to interview back, and it was kind of like a virtual happy hour where we just talk and chat about different things. And I have questions that are all lined up here in case I want to kind of throw some things out there to the guests. And if we just kind of talk amongst ourselves about things, and if people decide that they want to chat about stuff, then that's cool too. But yeah, so it's as interactive as we decide to make it. And without further ado, let's bring in our first guest. And let's see here. My first guest was interviewed that was Labor Day weekend on the Saturday. And it actually seems like it was longer ago, but it wasn't. So it was actually earlier this month. And I had such a pleasure talking with him. Such an amazing, talented musician, but also a bit of a deep thinker too. He won't admit to that, but he said some really profound things during his interview that not only I agreed with, but some of the fans that were watching really were moved by those words as well. So it's my pleasure to welcome for the first time to the Fun Table Sessions, Mr. Justin Kauflin. And... Hi, Justin.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing down there?
We're doing okay. Yeah, I said don't get your hopes up. That might have been a one-hit wonder there with the thoughts. But I appreciate it. Glad to be here to chat with these guys.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling that some other things are going to come out and you're just not aware of it. So I think no pressure though, no pressure at all.
Oh man, hey, but happy to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Yeah, no, thank you. Pleasure's all mine. And so let's bring in our second guest who has done one Fun Table session. He is the CEO of Shooting Star Skydiving Gear Superstore down in Georgia. He's done over 6,000 jumps. So if you ever want to jump out of an airplane, then this is the man to talk to. But he's also been playing drums for many, many years. And he and I actually went to high school together way back when. So let's please welcome to the fun table session. This is the second time for him, Mr. Mike Gruwell. And as this thing lines up here.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Mark. Hey, man. How you doing?
Doing good. You know, you started talking about the high school, and I realized that I can't get away from the purple, right? Our purple cane. The walls are all purple here, so
nice.
Yeah, and what Mike's saying is that our for whatever reason our high school mascot was not just a kangaroo, but a purple kangaroo.
Naturally.
So
naturally, yeah, exactly. Why not?
Absolutely.
When I used to teach in South Seattle, I would do this thing at the beginning of every semester where I talk about my background. I'd say, well, I graduated from Lake Washington High School, and I'd mention the thing about a purple kangaroo. And every time the kids are like, kangaroo. And it's like, did you miss the part of it also being purple? So just goofy stuff. But hey, let's bring in our third guest. I know there's some people that have been asking and chatting and DMing me about, hey, since you've been doing all of I see Ken's watching this. Go Kang. So nice to see you, Ken, fellow high school alumni from Lake Washington, another kangaroo. But since I've been doing the virtual interviews since May with Alice, it was only natural to extend the invitation to the members. And we have one member that decided he's going to step up. He's going to get involved with the fun table sessions. He is also an emergency room physician, for those that aren't aware of that. So he's got some really interesting things I'm sure that he can throw out to the fun table session. And let's welcome Mr. Steve Kefalas to the table. Let me get him in here.
Hello.
Hey,
Steve.
Happy to be here. How's it going? Hey, Justin. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mark.
Yo.
Good to see you guys.
Doing good. So glad that you're here with us, and
excited to be the first Alice member on the broadcast here.
You're
maiden voyage. I hope we're going to be able to do. It sounds like we may be able to get some interviews on that next tour that's coming up. So hopefully we can hear from a few of us. Get a little more in depth and return the favor. You've been so awesome on these tours with all the interviews and the fun table. It's been such a great experience watching. So yeah.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. And you'll be the first one here. And if another member decides they want to join a future fun table, again, I plan on doing them as long as guests want to be involved. So
awesome.
and it does sound like something's going to be happening during the third leg of the tour that involves you guys and potentially flipping the table, and someone might be, or maybe some buddies might be interviewing me.
All right. Nice.
I think that might be the night when I have a Wi-Fi problem or something. So I don't know.
And a few extra beers.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Captain Blackwood. Good to see you as always. Ken, good to see you. Hopefully things are good down in Texas. And anyone else that decides to join, you can definitely put your comments into the chat as long as they're appropriate. And I will start policing those, unfortunately, if I see something that I don't particularly like. But hopefully that won't be the case tonight. So I had something I wanted to just ask everybody here, which is actually not on the list of questions or anything like that. Hey, Tony. Since I have not been feeling well this week, I went and did a COVID test, came back negative, all that kind of thing. But it got me thinking about some of the protocols that we've been living with during this pandemic. And there's actually like maybe one or maybe two of them for me personally that once we get past this, whenever that is, I actually wouldn't mind if they continue. So for example, when I'm at the grocery store and I'm 6 feet apart from somebody, I like that. I don't like having somebody right up on me, or maybe their grocery cart shoving into my leg, or that kind of thing. That's actually been kind of a plus to me, and I just want to throw that out to the table. Is there anything that you can think of that you also wouldn't mind seeing continue once we're past this?
I think the tradition, and it's a little bit because we're, especially with the band and stuff, tend to be very touchy-feely. But I think the tradition of shaking hands to me has always been very, from COVID, but to the flu, to the common cold, it just seems like there's so much risk for, you know, transmitting things. So the sort of bow and yeah, a little distance. I like that. I mean, of course, if somebody that you're close to hugs, that's to be missed, but just a general kind of greeting.
I completely concur. I've always been a little bit wary after shows, because I not being able to see, you know, sometimes I can't prepare myself for somebody who's really going in, you know, for that close encounter, especially if it's a club date where people have had, you know, liquid encouragement. And I'm a little bit taken aback by the aggressiveness of some folks. I said, man, yeah, the distancing is, I'm you know, there's all kinds of ways of being able to still interact and show your appreciation and things. But yeah, no, I'm with you. That's exactly what I was thinking when he asked.
Yeah, that personal space is nice to have. And for me, I don't mind the handshakes and that type of thing, but it's the hugs that I'm not expecting. I'm not a big hugger. I need to know you, but it's like everyone's like, oh, hey, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? So yeah, not being forced into some of those is nice. But that's funny.
Well, I feel like some of the social interaction too, like there's been a lot of times, like you really sort of pare it down. Now I miss some of it, but a lot of times, you know, you pare it down to who you really want to see, when you really want to see them. And to me, I haven't, you know, everybody's different, but I haven't really missed a lot of the sort of going out and that kind of thing. I sort of like staying home, and I kind of like, you know, having beers with, you know, sort of close personal friends when it's really important. But that's just me. I mean, everybody's different. But
this might be a little telling, but when things really started shutting down, I guess March, April, you know, people would be reaching out. More folks would be reaching out to say like, "Hey, just making sure you're okay, and you know, are you handling this okay?" Because I'm here in Long Beach on my own, and I was like, "There's been zero change in my routine." Like I didn't necessarily go into LA to hang out, you know, all that often in the first place. So I'm like, I really don't know what you're talking about. This has been sweet. Now I don't have to have an excuse, you know, for being a homebody.
Exactly.
But you know, you know, the occasional get together almost feels more valuable this way.
Yeah.
When people do want to venture out, and you know, I got together with some buddies last weekend, an outdoor kind of eating situation, and it was a blast. And then, you know, but having it in less often kind of makes it more meaningful, maybe.
Less often, less crowded too. That's the nice thing. Wherever you go, it's never quite as crowded as it used to be, which is great.
Oh, so great. The LA traffic has pretty much disappeared. It's coming back a little bit, but man, it was really nice there for a while. And the walking too is really nice. I mean, it was so rare before in LA to see people out and about walking, but nowadays, especially a little earlier on, I mean, you know, everybody's packed, everybody's enjoying the outdoors and just walking through the neighborhoods. I mean, that's just a brand new phenomenon. So,
you know, that's funny you said that, because our neighborhood has come alive. And, you know, I'm a runner, so I'm out there all the time. It used to be, I saw no one. Now they're like tons of people and dogs, and it's nice. Yeah. So I enjoy seeing that, you know, getting to know some of the people you live around that you never saw before. So.
It kind of reminds me of the concept back when I was a kid growing up in the 70s of going out to eat was a special deal. And this is kind of the same thing, that because you're not seeing everybody all the time, or because you want to take advantage of the weather or something else, or just getting a breath of fresh air, that you're actually, it has extra meaning to you to actually do it. And because I remember it was like every Saturday was when our family got to maybe go eat pizza or you know, get a burger or something like that. And then it became like no big deal after a while, because it was like everywhere, and you know, the family dynamics changed, and people, it became more acceptable just to kind of eat whenever you needed to eat out. And this is very much the same, like what Steve was saying too. I remember I had to, I don't know if that was back in May, but I had to drive somewhere on the freeway for the first time, and it was like Christmas Day or something. There was like nobody out there. It was so bizarre. But I loved it that you could actually get into Seattle in like 20 minutes instead of the hour that it normally takes. I live north of Seattle, so it usually takes me a lot longer. And even now, some of it's creeped back in, but it's still not what it was pre-pandemic traffic-wise. So that's plus. And especially for Justin and Steve, you know, being musicians that are on tour, When you're talking about, especially Justin, about someone's going to come in for a close encounter and you're not expecting it. I remember I was waiting for this guitarist after a show, and because a fan was talking to her, and that fan was completely drunk, had way too much to drink, and was like all in her personal space, and was trying to just like put two words together she possibly could. And you could tell that guitarist was trying to get away from her because she felt uncomfortable, and she's small. She's like maybe 5 foot. And so I kind of interjected myself there and said, "Hey, so and so," and just kind of not bumped that other fan out, but then she kind of just meandered somewhere else and kind of realized that I'll go bug some other person while I'm drunk. And that's when the guitarist said, "Thank you for doing that," because it made her feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when we're out on tour, Tosh and Sasha, boy, do they get inundated sometimes. And the vast majority of people are really respectful, and it's great. But you do see the people that are just, I mean, super aggressive. And so they have become quite skillful at sort of deflecting that. But boy, it's something that I don't have to deal with as much, thankfully. And it looks tough. And now, I think that's going to be another, if we ever get back out on tour again. But
I hear it.
That'll be, yeah.
Now, you guys are speaking of the third leg. What are you guys getting ready to do with Alice?
So we had 4 tours planned for this year, real tours, and instead, because we can't go out, we converted them to virtual tours. So we're playing with a lot of the bands we would have played with, and in conjunction with a lot of the venues we would have been playing, and just streaming it all to Twitch, playing every night. The first one I think was 3 weeks, and then we did a 2-week one, and then coming up we're doing a 2-week one, playing every night with other bands and DJs, and Mark does interviews, and it's a really fun evening,
No kidding.
sort of collaborative. So it's been really nice, and it's been nice to sleep in our own beds.
Hey, hey,
right.
Man, that's for
Couches,
sure.
but, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing, man. So you guys were pretty much right on it seems, to make that adjustment.
Yeah, I mean that's another blessing in disguise of this, is it really forced us. We would have sort of been doing the same thing we've been doing for years, and it really forced us to pivot. We got a live stream set up with a bunch of cameras, and we have a good friend of ours who's doing all the filming, and we really, it forced us to get our online game up, and streaming on all the different places, and really concentrating on building our online numbers, which has been a real blessing in disguise. I mean, we're recording a new album. It's given us time to really focus on that. So I think for us, it turned out to be a really sort of a blessing. I mean,
that's awesome.
Have you seen other bands doing that? Because actually, when Mark told me about you guys, that was the first time I had seen, and you guys trying to do each date, each night that you would have been doing that. Have you seen other bands trying to do that?
We're seeing more and more people are starting to do it. At first, we were sort of the only ones that we knew, and then we had seen other people. We sort of talked to some other bands who were doing it on Twitch, and there are artists that make a pretty good living doing it. All online stuff, and we were like, whoa. And Scott, luckily, our guitarist, is sort of computer guru. I mean, he works in computers, in programming and designing, so he sort of put the whole thing together technically. And so we have that. Luckily, we have that. But we're it's been sort of a work in progress. I mean, trying to get a mix to sound good online is a whole different beast. So watching back every show and being like, that I think this worked, this didn't work. Plus, when you're playing every night, a lot of times there are fans that are there most nights, or if not sometimes every night. You have new people coming in and out, but when you're playing a venue, you play this a lot of the times, it's the same 10 to 12 tunes, and you're like, it's a new audience. It feels, and it's the same audience. You're kind of like, okay, this is weird. So it's forced us to really expand our repertoire. Mark, we have a ton of new songs that we're going to be playing in October, so we're excited about that. So it's really it's a new process, and we're figuring it out as we go. But yeah, there are bands out there and artists that are doing very well, making good money at it. Yeah. And it's like, wow, so.
Impressive.
Nice.
It's kind of this thing where, I thought my thought is, either folks are just going to be sitting around waiting for the venues to open up again, hopefully, hoping and hoping and hoping and kind of like, or jumping on the new situation and making those adjustments. And it's like, in the meantime, we don't know when that's going to return or if it will return the way that it ever was.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I can't sit around for 6 months to a year and like, oh, maybe these clubs will open up and I'll get a gig.
Right.
Like, now we're dealing with, especially within the jazz, I mean, all venues are kind of dealing with something, but like New York, most of those venues can't pay rents. And, the landlords are not going to be like, oh, we're going to forgive you. It's real life where it's really kind of a reality to consider that those places that you're hoping to play at might not be there. So
no doubt,
you gotta be flexible. You got to be flexible. For me, it's definitely been a quite a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think I feel the same way, where it's been a bit of a blessing to be able to maybe learn these things that I had been meaning to learn. Just streaming in general and dealing with what technology I need to get a grasp on, and learning what these things are, like OBS, which is was foreign to me before this. And then now I'm like, okay, I need to learn this. And the good thing about it is that these will be, skills that will they won't go away. Their usefulness
for sure
won't just vanish just because we can return back. So it's like, not lost time and effort. But yeah, it's definitely been a learning curve.
Yeah.
Oh man, doing a streaming thing, like my first one, I'm just, I basically just sit at my piano in my bedroom and I play a little bit, and hopefully people, get something from it.
Nice.
And in the middle of it, I think I had muted all the mics in Logic. And of course I didn't know for a while. And then I'm getting all these text messages and things, and people are like, there's no audio.
Exactly. I mean, early on, we had so many issues with OBS. I mean, our first tour, we were calling it the pancake tour, which is sort of our term for the plot, just a flop. We always have a pancake show, and we're like, yeah, that's what it was. And I mean, we could, and it's a learning curve. I mean, people would be streaming in through OBS, and you couldn't hear them. The audio, there'd be all this glitch, or sometimes we would have our own audio on, and so you could hear us talking in the background, and like potentially like sensitive conversations. Oh, good. Did I hear that? All this stuff. But it's kind of, and you watch Scott behind the scenes just like pulling his hair out in real time. The whole thing would crash, and he's like madly, like, I'm like, Scott, you're just like an ER doctor in a way. Like he is like slamming the keys, like, I gotta, his time is, of the utmost sort of importance, and it's funny to see him go to town on this stuff. But it's gotten more and more smoother, and you're right, I feel like it's going to be really useful going forward. I mean, this is all stuff that you find that your fans really care. I mean, they will tune into you when you're doing this stuff, because it's a very sort of intimate, genuine kind of environment, and they really get to see you, and they really get to sort of be with you in a real way. And so I really like it. I mean, there's nothing that replaces playing that, being in front of the audience, that energy, but there's something very, very cool about it, and being able to chat in real time. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that's one of the things I've appreciated, is that, you usually when you finish a show and you're going off to the next venue, you catch up with folks after the gig, and sometimes you have people that you get to know through that, because you repeat that venue or whatever, and that's cool. But the online thing has allowed, for a much more meaningful kind of conversation and connection with people, which has been really cool. Then like the conversation doesn't have to end, that like 2 minute after the gig and you're all sweaty and you're trying to actually get away.
Right.
So it's like, because it's on our own time, and it has been sort of a fun thing for me to do after the stream, to be able to go through the comments and get back to people individually. And then I'm like, I remember this person, and it has made it, even though it's not the face-to-face thing, there is kind of a nice just getting to know who these people really are.
For sure. Cool. In real time too. It's so cool. Like, you know, I mean, just having the laptop right next to the drum kit or whatever, and like completely flubbing something or stick goes flying, and you look over and they're, you know, you see it in the comments, and they're like, yeah, we saw that. Or Mark with the watch. Like, we had this whole running joke going where I would always, and it's just unconscious, I'd always start playing drums with my watch on. And I just unconsciously take it off, and Mark noticed that. And then he'd always like try and guess, okay, how long are we gonna make it with a watch on? When's it gonna happen? Yeah. And so it's just all these little things that are just kind of fun, and really provide a connection with everybody, you know. So,
Mike, I kind of wanted to ask you, because I know you do like drum tracking.
Yeah.
And I guess you had been doing this for a while. Did you feel kind of well positioned for when this thing happened and more people are needing to do tracks remotely?
So yeah, it definitely, because of this time, it allowed me, it's kind of like, it's a little bit kind of like what you guys got into. It, you know, it pushed you to other things, but it pushed me to get better at what I'm doing, to start bringing more video, to learn how to use Adobe Premiere, to do multiple angles on some of the stuff, not only just the drum tracking, but the video stuff too. So it definitely helped me up my game. This whole studio that I'm in right now, actually, I finished in March and April. At the time, I wasn't going to finish this all out, but this time off kind of got me to sink myself back into a better quality, learning different techniques. I could spend time, you know, a whole day just working on different miking techniques. But definitely I've had more people coming to me like, hey, you know, can you lay down some tracks for this thing I'm working on? And so so that's been awesome. It's definitely poured me back into this much more than before, because I also run a business that you know, does skydiving, but because that kind of went down a little bit, you know, I had all this free time. I did push as much content as I could with my business, like writing blogs and stuff to keep our community connected of skydivers. But at the same time, I had free time to also dump into music. So it's definitely been a huge blessing. I mean, it's been, I've loved the last 6 months, actually, you know. And I've got close family around here. My parents live close, so I've spent more time with them than I have in a long time. And my kids being home and stuff like that. So, but yeah, definitely this downtime, Justin, allowed me to really work on some of my techniques, up the number of mics, up how I was doing things, and a better quality sound. And I'm just, you know, I'm learning, you know, pushing myself as much as I can every day now. So.
How is the skydiving business? Is that starting to come back? Are you seeing that at all, or is that?
Yeah, you know, it came roaring back. You know, it's I've talked to, so I did this podcast with this guy that does this skydive radio, and we talked about that, because it seems like whenever there's a recession or an economic, you know, slowdown, people gravitate to stuff that's close to them. So instead of taking, you know, those $1,000, you know, vacations to go to the Bahamas or whatever,
interesting,
they'll spend, you know, they'll go an hour to go jump because it's closer. So we had a really big slowdown. I think it was the end of March, beginning of April, where it just totally, you know, everything died. But then since like the beginning of June, it's like, it feels like holiday time as far as like the number of people coming to us needing help, buying gear. It's double time right now. And I think it is, some of it is that, you know, the economy, the way it is, people aren't going to these big trips. They're doing something locally. They need a release, right? We're all stuck at home. I mean, the stuff that we found to do, that we love to do with music and all that, their release is skydiving. You know, they're still either they can't find a job or they have a job, but it's, you know, they're having to do it from home and they need to get out. And that release is local, so we're seeing a big uptick in that. So, and it's outdoors, so it's probably a little lower risk than other. Yeah, it is. You know, it's you know, you are in a plane. That's true. With no seats, so you know, I know that, you know, some of the drop zones are all wearing masks, but then when you're out in the sky, you know, it all goes away. But yeah, it is. You know, it's an outdoor activity for the most part. So yeah.
Man, oh man.
Good.
Yeah. So there's the other thing, and I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have it, but wind tunnels are big now, where it's like the indoor skydiving.
Oh,
So yeah, where you can just go in and you just get a jumpsuit and you go in and it's like 120 miles an hour of wind. So that's been popping up at all the major cities, and we have one in Atlanta. That took longer to get back because it's recirculating air. You're in there with people breathing, all that stuff.
Oh boy,
yeah. So so I finally got back into that about a month ago. I've got 3 other guys that we go there every couple of weeks. But that's weird. You're wearing a mask and you're trying to have your helmet on. It's a little bit hard. So, it's fun.
I've never done it. It's something that always intrigued me, and I will do it at some point. But it looks amazing.
Yeah,
it looks awesome.
It's fun.
Same here, but I'm only satisfied at amusement parks if it's the stomach in my throat feeling. I get real disappointed. Like, man, that ride was weak. It was nothing. Because visually, sometimes the rides can be satisfying, but if I don't have that feeling, it's like I might as well be sitting on the ground. Whenever a theme park has basically just the drop zone or so this is definitely on my list. When I find I'll have to get out to Atlanta so you can be my partner.
It's funny, Justin.
I'm not doing it alone, that's for sure.
It's funny.
Pull on the chute, man. Pull the chute.
You don't get that, that stomach going up in your throat feeling. You get it first couple seconds, but it's just all that wind. Yeah, you're like floating on air. And that's
man, we'll take that too, man. We'll definitely go for that. Awesome. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I like the going in a straight line. The spinny stuff, I'm tough with. Like, I went to Magic Mountain a couple of years ago for Six Flags for my birthday, and man, I was dizzy for a week. Like, it was rough. But
yeah, I hear.
More power to you, Justin, on that.
Hey, man, I'm into jumping out of a plane though.
That
sounds real good.
Come on, let's go.
Well, Mike, how often how many times do you tend to jump out of planes? Is it like whenever you feel like it, or do certain people request to go out with the CEO, or how's that work?
So I do have. So I started jumping in like '97 when I was in Seattle, but I haven't jumped in like probably 2 years now. So my business and the family's gotten to the point. So for several years, I was jumping 10 to 20 times a day for,
wow.
And so that was like, that's what I was doing. I was taking people up on tandems. I was instructing. I was a videographer. I was a parachute rigger. I was basically jack of all trades, and I just poured my life into it. And that's how kind of Shooting Star came out of that. But what it used to be like, Mark, since I don't really skydive anymore, now I just, I still have my gear, but I didn't go to the wind tunnel. But it used to be that, I was in rotation just like everybody else. You'd have, a group of 50 people come in the door, and we're just getting them up as fast as we can, making sure they're having a good time. Instruction, go up, jump, under canopy, land, video, shake their hand, and then you get to the next person. So a lot of times when you're at a busy drop zone, you're making you're meeting 15 to 20 new people a day, taken for that once in a lifetime experience. And you're trying to make that, that basically that maybe 30 minutes you have with them as like spectacular as possible. And it's a hard thing. I mean, it wears on you. You're definitely tired at the end of the day, but I did that for several years. And then
you're allaying a lot of people. Oh,
go ahead.
I'd say you're allaying a lot of people's fears probably too. You're probably sort of working them through that. Right.
I mean, all that. It's because you really learn how to communicate with people and keep their mind off it. And you learn so much. I mean, I met so many people, learned about so many different professions and what they do with their lives, what they love, what they hate, all that type of stuff in that, 15 to 20 minute bite. But you are a constant communicator, or feeling out if it's, you shouldn't be talking too much to them. It's like, it's just learning all these personalities. So, but you're right up with them for that good 15 to 20 minutes, and you just get to know them really well. And I still have people that will email me or send me notes every once in a while, like, you were my first instructor and I have like 2,000 jumps now, or, that was the time of my life when you took my mom up, all that type of stuff. So,
wow.
Yeah. So some great connections. Yeah.
Mike, I'm just curious. So obviously, there's got to be some people, especially for first-time jumpers, or maybe they kind of got talked into going, and as they get up into the plane and they're ready to go, that the jitters hit them, and they're like, "I don't think I want to do this." So do you try to, what's the protocol there? What do you do with those folks?
That's pretty rare. I mean, for the most part, and I know from my experience, most people, they turn around before they get to the drop zone. They start driving, and then they're like, "Oh, my stomach." Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. They're like, it's a no-show. You're like, you know.
Okay.
If they walk in that door, you know, they're 75% of the way there. If they get on the plane, I can tell you over my years, there's only been like one person that actually had to land in the plane. They just would not get out of the plane. But when you get up there, I mean, we talk about like it's more scary to land with the plane, which it is. Once you're in that plane, with the way these planes descend, because these planes, as soon as they let you out, they turn over and they're like diving to the ground because they got to get down as fast as they can to get up the next load. It's actually more scary to get in the plane. So if you get them, you talk, and you got someone like that, you talk about that a little bit. You also just start scooting toward the door. You know, yeah, it's all, we'll talk about it. And you scoot to the door, and all of a sudden you're out. You go.
That's funny. The alternative is worse.
Yeah, it is.
I never would have guessed that, but that makes total sense. Like, yeah, you're better off jumping out of this plane.
Honestly, this pilot's not very experienced. You might want to get out of here.
Yeah, we talk about, the planes are used for carrying passengers, and then for cargo, and then skydivers. So, we're at the bottom of the barrel. The plane's almost done.
Happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've got 2 potential clients whenever they find themselves in
Exactly.
Georgia.
Next time I get out to Atlanta.
Yeah. Next time the tour is up, come out this way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Oh my goodness.
When we can get back to it.
Yeah. For sure. And before
so Justin, is this time off also getting you to write more than you have in the past?
That's funny. No, not really.
Really? You're like, eh.
I've gone into if anything has shifted, maybe I've gone into more of an absorption mode, where I've always wanted to get into a lot more music, and of course you listen while you're on the plane or you listen, but I usually want to listen to stuff I'm familiar with when I'm in transit, just for comfort. But it's been a wonderful time for discovery, and it's kind of been all over the place in terms of what I've been getting into. But really, more recently, I've just been very insatiable with a lot of classical music, and that's actually been a lot of fun. I feel like for me, I'm either in sort of a soaking it in time, and then start hopefully internalizing the things that I'm bringing in, and then the creative process will kind of happen naturally out of that. I'll find things that'll inspire me to, but it maybe has shifted into listening to music and also figuring out maybe what performer I actually want to be on the piano. So actually, that's awesome. Looking at the piano, and I think doing these weekly streaming sessions that I've been doing has really allowed me to think, man, how do I make this more interesting? The solo piano can be very interesting if you're good at it, but I'm definitely have revealed a lot of not holes, but areas where I could really spend some time developing to create that interest that I know exists. I mean, there's 400 years of repertoire of different approaches to how to play the piano, and so it's been fun to get into that, and I'm hoping to maybe shift a little bit more into writing, but the process continues, and I guess I'm just writing whatever feels most natural. I've written one song since COVID happened, and it's all I wrote a song for my guide dog who's not with me now. She's with my parents in Virginia, and I'm thinking, when am I going to see my dog again? I don't know. I'm not very comfortable flying at this point, especially alone. So she's got a song That's it. Yeah. Candy. Yeah.
What are your? How long are your broadcasts or your streams?
I usually do them
How do
for
they
about an
go?
hour. You know. And so what I've done is to keep it like structured for me. Wednesdays is always a different theme. Maybe the work of some pianist or some composer that I'm a big fan of. And then Sundays is more of a, let's go to church. So I do more hymns and try to go in and learn new ones to share with people. But the newest thing that I've started doing is once a month I'll do requests, and I just decided to embrace humility and allow folks to just throw anything at me, because a lot of times you get pretty. I know for me, somebody's like, play this, and I'm like, excuse me, like, you want to say please or something, but this is giving me an opportunity to maybe just say like, okay, you know what, I'm here to hopefully make people happy, so let me hear what anybody wants to hear, no matter what I might think, well, that's way out of my comfort zone or way out of things that I listen to, but let me try to tackle it. So Wednesdays went on for 2 hours, which, it's funny because it didn't feel that bad, and it was because it just kept on moving, and then people had all kinds of different things that they wanted to hear. So I went from James Taylor to Sting to Bjork, to the Beatles. So it's actually been a lot of fun for me to continue discovering new music.
Yeah,
and probably really fun for the audience to really like.
I hope so.
Dig in and like see you work through it. Like that's really interesting.
That is definitely the hope. And I was telling Mark, it actually kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, because I know beforehand, before I play a song, that somebody will be happy that I'm playing it, because they asked for it, as opposed to putting a program together and being like, man, I don't know if you guys are going to like it or not. I can actually take more chances, because then if people don't like it, I'm like, don't blame me. I'm not the one that wanted me to play this song.
That's right.
Blame so-and-so. Yeah.
Sorry. We were talking about that earlier, that I caught part of Justin's stream on Wednesday. So I heard him play Fields of Gold, a couple Beatles songs. I forgot about Bruce Hornsby. You played some
Bruce Hornsby stuff. Hey, that was cool too, man. I wasn't hip. I didn't know he has this solo piano stuff that was really, really quite beautiful. So that was a nice new discovery for me, actually. And Bruce, he's a great piano player. It was nice to be able to hear that in great detail, with these I forget what album it's from, but he has these things called Song A, Song B, Song C, and I think they're sketches that he improvises on. But what he presents is really, really nice chords, really nice voicings. I dig them.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was in the same boat, because I'm like most people. I only know The Way It Is and maybe one other song, and then when you played those pieces, it was like, that's Bruce Hornsby stuff. I mean, maybe I need to look back into his catalog a bit.
He's got some good stuff in there. And I mean, it's the thing that I've learned is just no matter the genre, there's always something good in there. Sometimes it might take some searching, but genius isn't really restricted by the genre that the person is creating in. And hopefully this will give me an opportunity to, definitely delve outside of, my regular music habits, and then find some of those geniuses.
Yeah, music is so about emotion, and you can achieve that emotion in so many different ways, and so it just crosses it beyond specific genres and stuff like that. I always find that so fascinating.
It's it. And the more we grow and the more experiences we have, the more we're able to actually appreciate those things that people are sharing. I know. Yes. I'm in my mid-30s, but 10 years ago, I there was things that I wasn't able to connect with, within the jazz tradition, but even outside of that. And then you grow, and then you have an experience that allows you to relate to that thing that artist was sharing.
Yeah.
I say, I'm not old enough. That's all. I hadn't been through that yet,
That's
but then you do, and then it's like, oh, it hits home, and you get it,
Is that why I appreciate everything? Because I'm so old now?
Oh, hey now. I feel like it goes either way though. I definitely run into some older folks that they dig deeper. They dig in harder, like this is what's good music. Like, what you guys are doing is trash.
Oh, and Steve, you were going to say something. You were going to ask something earlier.
Oh, I was going to ask you. Yeah, I mean, with your streams, I was wondering how, because you've done how many interviews are you up to now, including all the fun tables and the interviews? I mean, it's got to be a lot.
Yeah, it's just with Alice alone, it was 46.
Wow.
And then my own Eclectic Arts ones, it's been. I actually had that number down on Monday on my notes. It's got to be maybe 20.
Wow.
In addition,
Okay.
so we're into the 60s and maybe 70s now.
Yeah. Have you found a difference in your approach or in how you approach these things? Have you evolved in a certain way, or do you find a difference, or sort of have you found a sort of a comfortable area where you're, sort of consistent, I guess?
Oh, that's an interesting question. When it comes to the virtual interviews, not these fun tables, it was definitely a work in progress. And that first leg of the Alice tour was a learning time for me, for sure.
Yeah.
I go back and look at some of those early interviews, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are horrible. And not in terms of what I asked, but in terms of how I was. Like, my voice was actually higher in pitch, and you could see that I was just nervous about the whole thing. And it took a while, but I think once we got to even maybe like the interim shows in July, because there was a big gap, there was only Thursdays and Sundays, they're a little bit longer, so I could talk and be as long-winded as I wanted to, for the most part. That's when I started kind of feeling comfortable. I'm like really comfortable with things.
Yeah.
But I can also say that like when the second leg happened, I was still comfortable doing that doing them, but then the behind the scenes stuff for me in terms of scheduling people was nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on with, I'd have everybody locked in for a week, and then like half of them would change. And they changed like within 24 hours. So I'm scrambling around trying to figure out what else can I do.
Right.
And if that had happened on the first leg, oh man, I would be like in the funny farm right now or something. I was not in the space to deal with something like that the first leg, but thankfully in August I was able to deal with it and still make things work. But I'm also somebody that with anything that I do pre-pandemic or during the pandemic, that I really try to treat people the right way. And so when someone doesn't treat me the right way, I'm still learning to say no. I'm still learning to kind of hold my ground. And it's kind of surprising because some people kind of think I will just like cut somebody off immediately, like I did during the last fun table last week when we had a troll come through. And that'll come out of me depending on my mood. But typically I'm not like that. I'm a very laid back person. So finding my rhythm with the interviews and those live streams, sometimes I feel like, I kind of got it. It's going. I know who the guest is, what I'm going to ask. And then, and you guys might know us being the band. I don't know if you guys are actually able to hear the audio during the pre-shows sometimes. I don't know if you have that on or if I'm muted or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. We have it on.
Okay. So sometimes, the guests will come on and I'm feeling good. And then the guest isn't feeling so great. So then I'm trying to massage them a bit. So that they feel better. And maybe they're just having a bad day or just because flat out we're in a pandemic. They just they don't want to necessarily do this, but they're feeling like they're obligated to do it because they committed to me. I know I wrote this in one of my blog entries, but some of the best things that I think I've done has actually been during the pre-shows and no one will ever see that other than the band.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if they only knew what this guest was like before, and then 20 minutes later we go live and then they seem like they're really in a good place and all that. And I'm happy about that. I'm so happy that I can get them there. Yeah. But that's just that kind of hidden aspect. So as I've been doing these on my own, I think I've pretty much found my comfort zone because I know what I want. If it's somebody that I'm kind of marginal about interviewing, I just don't do it. And that's also kind of where I think the fun tables came from because I had so much fun doing them and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted from them and and the guests don't know because they're looking to me. So it's kind of like we're kind of blind leading the blind in some cases. No offense, Justin.
I take full offense at that, actually. I'm going to go ahead and bounce now. Yeah. Out of here, man. Blind jokes. Golly. Well, actually, Steve, I'd like to ask you guys, since you guys have quite a few under your belt with the format that you guys have been doing with Alice, how has that process been for you? Have you been able to take time to readjust?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it started off being it's sort of like shows where it was a normal show where you'd be well rehearsed and you try and make all the transitions and you try and play the songs perfectly, and over time, through just living through a lot of these crazy mistakes and also just become more comfortable with the whole thing, what you start to realize is it's actually like the process of it that's the fun part. I mean, yes, the songs and everything you want to be good at, but like it's the authenticity, it's the interaction. And so we really sort of I think relaxed a lot and found much more of a comfort in just like being ourselves and playing and just going with our stupid humor and talking to each other and talking to people online, and then let's play a song. It's sort of become much more of a just a authentic kind of fun experience, and
the community aspect, I'm sure.
For sure, the community aspect. I mean, it's been really cool to interact with so many really awesome artists and just getting to know people, all the fans and everybody online who are so insightful and look at things in different ways than we ever see. I mean, the insights that they bring to it it's amazing. It's like, wow, I never looked at it that way. And yeah, I mean, getting to work with Mark, I mean, that's what, we always notice that about you. And we're always like in those pre-show interviews, we're like, man, Mark is so good because you make people feel so comfortable and you sort of shoulder the burden of some of it, as opposed to just asking questions and putting people on the spot. You always share, like, which we always notice, like in the pre-show interviews, we're always watching that, like madly getting sort of ready for the night. And we're like, look how disarming, you are. And so I don't know, it's something that we definitely all notice. So yeah,
I appreciate that, because until we're talking about this right now, I really had no clue what you guys heard or saw during the pre-show. I only knew that when I was live it was on, so I don't know. I had no idea. And yeah, there's and again, sometimes it's been actually the opposite too. When I wasn't doing so well, like I remember when all the protesting was going on at the end of May, and then I had to come on with Wade Murph for the first time, and I'd never met Wade at all. So I'm like, oh man, I'm in a pretty bad spot right now myself. And then through talking with him, he was not in the best spot. So we just kind of commiserated together. Yeah. And then we ended up with one of the best interviews. So
for sure.
It's definitely a two-way street sometimes. But I do take it that if I'm inviting someone, it could be Mike, could be Justin, to do an interview with me, then I'm the host. And that means I want to do everything I can to make it comfortable for them. I want it to be something where they feel like it was worth their time. And hopefully, if I do my job right, they'll come back. And clearly, I have two people that came back to take a chance on this. So I guess I did something okay.
Never again, though. Never again.
I spoke too soon. Oh, no.
Not going to forget that. Yeah. Not going to forget it, man.
Those blind jokes. Yeah.
I'll shut up now.
Man, nah, not at all. Not at all. I think he's absolutely right. There's a skill, and I think just as performers, we all have to learn that different aspect. And Mike, in your situation as well, like just learning how to deal with people, on a very potentially very deep level, and being able to read that kind of situation, seeing if they got the jitters or seeing whatever's going on with them. You're there to help them, as well as try to get the best out of them. But it's a skill that I think, even though we're all separated, by space, being in the digital space is probably opening up that opportunity for a lot more of us to learn just people in general. Yeah. Facebook has been a tremendous learning environment, and just learning really how to handle all these different types of interactions and different people. I think it's difficult, but it's also been a good challenge, I think, to realize, man, we're all different. I mean, we're all very similar, but we all have our different ways of going about things. And, I can't fault somebody because their approach to communicating or to whatever, anything is different. It's just different, not worse, in a way. But it has been a learning experience just with that, that situation.
Yeah, to not take some of what you see personally, to like try and see, where they came from, what their side. Yeah. Just, we're all still humans. We're just trying to get through this crazy life, and it's definitely been more trying. There's more of that stuff in Instagram and Facebook, but I think I'm more understanding as the years go on of other people and why they may be doing or saying or whatever. So it's helping me try and, I have 2 teenagers now. I have twin 15-year-old boys, and, trying to be a good role model, give that good advice and help them through that. Anyway,
we have enough. It's a hard thing, I think there's a lot of divisiveness going on, and I think there always is, right? I don't think that ever goes away. We always look for something to be divided about. But in all of that, it has been an opportunity for me personally to be like, okay, but where's this person coming from? That may have led them down, thinking this way, and it is like, it's challenging, but it's also like, we're all people and we're all really trying to figure it out. It's not an easy road for anybody, No so it's like, all right. I'm not the only one that feels confused, or angry about something, or, baffled. That's everybody's state. Essentially, And
it's the time that you catch that person, right? So meet you today, Justin, but if I catch you some other time 2 months from now on a bad day, I'd be like, that Justin dude? No.
Hey man, don't catch me before my coffee, man. Don't ever catch me before it's a real bad scene.
We all have things going through just a normal day that you meet that person at the wrong time, you have a totally different impression of them. And just giving them the benefit of the doubt, like, hey, they're probably working through something.
Yeah, it's a lesson in understanding and I guess empathy, But I think that's the kind of stuff that hopefully makes us better musicians, to communicate that. And of course, just the nature of being a musician, I think, does sort of require. You have to listen to the other people. You have to. Yeah, you have to be willing to make those adjustments, or else the show sucks. But I
feel like it's also been a lot of self-reflection too. Like, we're not used to it a lot of times as performers and musicians seeing ourselves, but in this new sort of era where everything is online and you watch it back, or even like a Zoom discussion, you're sitting there looking at yourself talking to other people, which is a whole new experience. But I definitely, in watching myself back a lot, I realized, wow, I come across in a certain way that I didn't realize. And so it's affected my sort of performance and just, a lot of things, even conversations,
That is a funny thing though, for sure. Just because, you listen back just to make sure it worked, And in doing that, I've been listening and thinking, oh, don't do that again.
Exactly.
Stop doing that. Yeah, you thought that was cute, but it's not.
Oh my goodness.
Bit of perspective there.
For sure.
It looks like I'm having fun right now. Like,
I had this weird thing that, so I usually have like just one AirPod in so that I can track comments on YouTube. When they like in between songs or something like that, so I can try to respond. And I noticed that in the beginning, I would read the comment and laugh, but nobody would know what I was laughing at. You know, like, man, that's creepy, dude. That's really weird. You gotta stop doing that, or at least let people know what you're giggling at. You know, and because I hadn't even told people that that's what I was doing. You know, you're looking at me, and I'm just kind of like looking off into space, and I'm like, I have the phone next to me, so you don't even see me scrolling. And so I was like, yeah, we need to fix that for sure. You know, people are just going to leave thinking like I'm just a weirdo. You know?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I noticed that when I'm playing, that when I'm stationary, the energy is so different than even when I'm sort of moving back and forth, even subtly. And some shows where I notice that when I'm just feeling it and stuff, I'm like, the difference is like way more profound than what I'm feeling while I'm playing. Like, it doesn't feel that different. But so, you know, and not that I should be inauthentic about it if I'm not sort of feeling it, and I'm not going to be like dancing, but I don't know. It was just really striking.
Now, I'm assuming you guys basically have, you have it all set up, because I imagine it's a pretty decently, big setup for you guys' shows.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I mean, it's 5 musicians total. Sometimes we'll add the guest musician or that kind of thing. And we have sort of individual, like I have an individual camera on me, and then different cameras pointed at different musicians. And then there's a roving camera as well that will do different sort of, dynamic shots. So
pardon me for being very geeky, but like what I hear a lot of synths and stuff. What do you guys have that stuff set up for the shows too?
So oh man, Scott plays and now I'm all of a sudden Juno, and he plays guitar as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Gordon plays bass, but also has a mini Moog that he plays, and he has a foot pedal that'll play sort of the deep low notes. He'll be playing bass, and then I'll also have keyboard bass parts to it.
Oh man!
And then there's another sort of third MIDI keyboard that Tosh will play on certain songs, and she'll play piano as well on certain songs.
I love it.
So it's a pretty extensive setup, going between electronics and then the full rock, big heavy rock kind of stuff.
No kidding, man. That's very impressive.
It provides a lot of different, it's a palette. And I play mostly live drums, but I also have a little Roland trigger pad.
What is that? SP, whatever.
SPD, yeah.
Hey man, I dig it.
So
into it, man. I love it. Yeah, I love the sounds, and just on the newer track, I was like, man, I'm digging these pads. So I was curious.
Yeah.
Curious,
Most of a lot of that is all Scott's production and his Juno. The Juno
it definitely has that sound. It's not a virtual instrument, It's got a nice personality to it.
Knobs. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Man, I'm hoping to get brave enough. I have a Prophet 6 in my office, and I really want to try to figure out how to incorporate it in a natural way, with what I'm doing. I figure if I do enough like Chick Corea music, I can bring out the Prophet. First, I got to get it calibrated so it's in tune,
Yeah,
but
that's the weird thing. And it's out of tune. You're like, what?
What has happened to you? Yeah, but that's hip. That must be nice that you guys don't have to keep on breaking down and setting up.
Oh God, the setup has become so extensive. We'll show up to clubs, and they're like, what? We're like, we need at least 2 hours. And they're like, it's crazy. Plus a light setup, light is all tracked, sort of MIDI triggered lights and all that kind of stuff. So the setup is ridiculous. So now we set it up and we get to just leave it, but it's become quite a beast.
That's killer.
So has it become more extensive now that it's in one place? Like
it has.
Now when you go back on tour, it's going to be.
We're gonna have to figure it out. I mean, I've gotten more and more drums. I'm playing 3 different snares now, and plus the trigger, and I'm like, I can't be bringing all this stuff on tour. I mean, you can't. I mean, so we'll have to pare it down. But it's been really fun. It's funny because the band's been around for a while, and we started very rock, sort of progressive rock, and for this new tour, we're going to be doing sort of revisiting a lot of that stuff, and to go back and play all that stuff, it's changed so much because it's become much more synthy and electronic. And to go back and revisit that old thing, but with a fresh new kind of outlook.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh man, it's so crazy to see what just has happened, how it's evolved, and just sort of in a natural way. I don't know, but yeah,
That's awesome.
Wow. But and Justin, I was going to also mention that at least with the live stream that Alice has been doing, Steve's done the lighting design for those tours, and it's been changed up so they don't ever stay in one place. They keep evolving, which I love.
Got it. Yeah.
They don't just think, well, this is good enough, so we'll do it for the rest of the tours. It's like, no, what else can we do? And they add something else to it. I don't even know what they have up their sleeve for this third leg, but I'm sure it's gonna be something that I didn't expect. And it's awesome. And then you have other parts of the band that are working on the audio part, like what Steve mentioned, and you have people working on the design, and you have, I mean, it's just all these aspects. So it's all organic and DIY as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So what you hear or see is what the band put into it. And that's something that I have such respect for them. And it's one of the things that when I first heard about the band, 3 years ago, I thought there must be a bunch of people behind the scenes and a team of, other professionals that they're working with. And there are some, but the thrust of it is from the band. And that's awesome. So
that's it.
Yeah. Our newest thing today, as of today, we have bandanas, Alice bandanas, and face masks.
Oh, nice.
That is our newest addition here. Scott's been designing those. Actually, we have an amazing artist. It's nice to have, collaborate with so many like friends of ours. It's become like a community, and everybody sort of, so we have a graphic artist that we're working with who's just coming up with these amazing designs. And then we have a bunch of dancers. I saw Kazi in here earlier, who do a lot of the dancing for the music videos and stuff like that. So it's just become like, just like a lot of friends sort of getting together and just being like, all right, what should we do next?
That's cool.
So,
and
Think creative. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve, I see, Steve, that Captain Blackwood asked, did the lighting change for Chapter 3?
Oh God.
Or do you want?
Yeah, there we go. We have a bunch of new tunes, and that's gonna be my next 2 weeks. I gotta start getting programming. It's busy 2 weeks coming up. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, kind of shifting gears a little bit, Steve, for you. Do you ever get tired of friends or family asking you about, hey, can you take a look at this because they know you're a doctor and you have this background? Do you have a set thing that you say to those people?
No, I'm totally fine with it. If anybody has any, things that they're concerned about, I want to know about, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, a lot of times people, it's funny because I work in the ER, and so I see a lot of really sick people. And so when people are like, yeah, my finger hurts a little bit, it's like, there's not all that much, take some Motrin. I feel like I almost don't have that much to offer. But for sure, we had one situation where Sasha was making something, I can't remember, she was doing something for a video cutting, and she had a box cutter, and she slashed her leg wide open. And at the time she didn't have, I don't think she had good insurance or something, and she called me and she sent a picture. I'm like, oh my God. And I just so happened to have suture stuff at home. I'm like, come over. So we sat on the couch and numbed it up and stitched it up and the whole thing. And so stuff like that, it's kind of fun. It's sort of an experience, but I'm totally happy to help out with stuff like that.
That's good, man. 100%. So I got this thing going on with my knee. It's weird, man.
I need that Vicodin, that Percocet.
Yeah.
Into my pharmacy. I definitely been on tours where people found when we were touring with other bands early on. I used to play drums with this band, Android Lust, and we would tour with a lot of different artists. There's a couple people who found out, and they had chronic sort of, opiate sort of addictions and stuff. And they found out that I was a doctor. So I was put into some uncomfortable situations at that time. Now, thankfully, actually, things have gotten a lot stricter as far as that goes. You can't just write a script for, Percocet and have it filled. It's got to be on specific type of, prescriptions, pads, and it's got to be all cleared and all that stuff. So with the medical record. So I can just say now, sorry, I can't, but, but yeah. But yeah, no, anybody who has any issues or absolutely. And if you're in LA and you need to go to a hospital, give me a call. Justin, you're down here. If you need to go to, I can get
Hey,
you a
man.
quick.
Hey, man, I'll take you up on that. Yeah.
Exactly, man.
Steve, man, my eyes, something going on.
Exactly. How long? Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know what's happening, man. They're not working. Yeah.
But suddenly I can really play the piano, man. I can. Superpowers.
Yeah, man. Oh, heavy.
Oh my gosh. Not to put any kind of pressure on anybody, but just throwing it out there, it almost seems like maybe if it works out that Justin might be able to play piano with you guys somewhere down the road or somewhere during a session.
That would be awesome. I would love to.
We're checking it out, man. I'll get on there and steal that Juno.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that would be great.
That's where it's at, man.
Maybe we can link up with our live streams as well. I mean, we're always playing with artists, and we'll stream it out to all our fans and all that stuff. That would be awesome. I'd love that.
Well, always up for any opportunity to collaborate, for sure. And like I said, just trying to expand. It's been interesting actually to be doing these and to realize, just by the nature of how my career has gone, of course it's been in the jazz scene primarily. There's a movie about myself and a jazz trumpeter.
No kidding.
So that kind of and that is what I have been doing for the last 15 years.
Wow.
But like I say, music is music. And some of this stuff just absolutely knocks me out. I'm really looking forward to doing with my themed things. I've been primarily doing jazz things, but it's like I'm starting to do my homework now for Radiohead, and that just to give myself a chance to venture out there and hopefully see if any of these jazz heads follow.
Nice.
Like I want to do this. I want to do anything, like it's kind of where we're at now. I think is being able to just create together and see what comes of it. We got nothing but time now. Tell you what.
Yeah, exactly.
Gordon,
our bass player, is big jazz guy. He works 5 nights a week playing stand-up bass at the Sunset Tower Hotel.
Oh, cool.
And he arranges and does some musical directing for a big band. And so he is, you guys should link up because you would have a lot.
For sure.
That's awesome, man.
We're into it. Music.
Yeah. And I don't know. And then you can, get everybody to jump out of an airplane with Mike somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, it seems like, are you still, I guess with pandemic things have shifted, but you were doing a lot, just doing the thing at church seemed like it's been a big thing for you? Yeah,
so that about 5 years ago, I started playing for just local churches. And there's a couple of churches that I play for regularly. Of course, that kind of went away for a while, but I'm playing this Sunday. And I think the big thing on that was when I played growing up in Seattle and playing in bands and all that stuff early on, I never played to a click or in-ears. It was all, and I think that was such a learning experience, being thrust into these band situations at a church, these worship bands that have click track.
Interesting. Okay.
And I had never played to a click track in my life. So
it's a whole different beast.
Oh, good grief. And I remember the last few songs that we recorded as a band back in like the late 90s. We just had someone starting to work with us with the click track. And I was just like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I fought it tooth and nail. And then all of a sudden, 5 years ago, I tried it again. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. So I am very involved with a couple local churches, helping them out with the worship bands. And that's been great. The teams there and seeing their heart. So I'm enjoying that. And they really have it's more than just, they really have a love for, a professional sounding, and just having a band that actually listens to each other. These musicians are great. That was something I wasn't expecting either. The quality of musicians in some of these churches are just, it's amazing. And there's stuff I'm learning from that I just wasn't expecting. And that's been awesome too. So
tell you what, I wonder what that is like. I grew up and still in, a Catholic church.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you what, man, God bless them. But primarily it's the volunteer situation, and usually a smaller kind of setup. But whenever I hear about these really killing bands, I'm like, where were you when I needed you?
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah, early on, I played just before I kind of like put the drums to the side for a while. I played in some churches. It's nothing like it is today, at least the churches that I'm playing. But yeah, some of the quality and the stuff that they're, and a lot of writing of songs and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's been unexpectedly awesome.
That's cool.
And the community of just the musicians on these teams, and, just brotherhood and sisterhood and all that good stuff has been awesome too. So yeah,
that's what it's about, man.
Has really expanded. I mean, I didn't grow up religious, and I got big into church music in the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, I'd say. And boy, some of those musicians are insane. I mean, and then they go on to play with like the really big artists and pop artists and stuff like that. But some of my favorite drummers are all come from church.
I'm gonna tell you, man, for me as a pianist, and I mean, my favorite hobby is to watch, especially in the gospel organists, shedding videos. I mean, it's the type of stuff that it just is like, I spent so much time in school and studying harmony and figuring things out and transcribing, jazz pianists. And then I hear this guy who's like been playing for 2 years, and the things that come out of that organ is like, I don't get it. I don't even know. I know it makes me feel good, but it's crazy not to understand what just happened.
I know, right? I know.
What did you just do? Really?
You're like, I don't even know what you just did. Like, I can watch this over an hour and I don't know what that was.
Yeah, man.
That's a crazy feeling.
It's a whole different type of virtuosity that is completely organic, where they're using their ears. And sometimes they, there might be some, theory that goes into it as well, but it's like primarily using the ears and just being able to also that dynamic between the musicians and the preacher, that's a whole different thing. You talk about being able to listen and accompany and read the mood and be able to shift and enhance like that. That is a tremendous skill. So these guys, there's a whole different thing popping up, man. Or I mean, it's been there, but for me, it's like my YouTube recommendations are always just full of gospel sheds.
Yeah, exactly. My Spotify like recommendations are, half of it is for sure, like church music.
Yes.
Friends like, oh, I didn't know you were religious. I'm like, I'm not really, but boy.
Wow.
Awesome. I completely forgot. Am I the only one drinking anything?
I got myself
coffee right now. I'm going to work in a little bit, so.
Oh man.
Well, that makes sense then.
What's your schedule like, Steve, outside of music?
It's completely erratic all over the place. So I work, I work tends to be somewhere around 15 days a month or so. Sometimes more if we're playing music. I cut it down a bit, and it just shifts all the time. So last night I worked the overnight shift, was 11 till about 8 a.m. And then tonight I'm doing the same, and then I'll have a day off, and then I work like a 3 p.m. on Saturday or Sunday, and then a couple of days off, and then a morning shift. It's just constantly cycling.
And are you at a point that you get to choose that, like when you're on or off type thing?
That is the nice thing about it, is I can really request, like every 2 months I can be like, I can't work these 2 weeks, and luckily my boss is like, okay, cool, and as long as I can work around it and all that, so it's really flexible. It's nice that way.
Awesome.
When I have extra time, I can work extra and that kind of thing. So Helps be a night owl doing it. If I was a morning person, it would be tough.
Man, have you seen that? The ER, man. I was just earlier this summer, I had a bit of an incident, kind of a panic thing.
Okay.
And I hadn't been in an ER really, and I was there on my own, and just whew, it's a real scene, and the level of composure, with all of the folks and the things that they're dealing with on a regular basis. I mean, I really do commend you for being in that situation and being able to just maintain, I think.
I appreciate you. Yeah. It's a crazy experience in there. I mean, I'm constantly trying to remind myself what it's like for people who haven't been in there, and you walk in and there's people screaming bloody murder, and somebody who rolls by who's getting chest compressions or whatever, and into a room, and then you're kind of I've had I trained in New York at Bellevue in my residency. I'll never forget this one time where we saw a lot of prisoners, from the prisons and people who were arrested, and there was one area, the ER, and there was this young, super nice girl who was in there for some reason, and she just happened to be sort of surrounded by a lot of craziness, like at this time. I mean, a lot of people yelling, a lot of sort of almost sometimes violent, and she was just like petrified. She's like, I have to get out of here, like kind of a thing. And that made an impression on me. I'm like, this is really can be a scary place for people. So, we sort of get desensitized to it. After a while, you sort of, you get to recognize a lot of times it's not the loud stuff that you have to worry about. It's the person who's completely quiet that a lot of times is the really sick one that you have to jump on. So, a lot of that stuff is sort of extra, but we learn to sort of tune it out a little bit, but it can be a crazy place. So I hope it wasn't too crazy a experience for you.
It has definitely kind of struck home too, that the pandemic has definitely affected a lot of things and shut down industries and things like that, but people still are dying. People are still dealing with serious issues and outside of the pandemic, life continues.
Yeah.
It's like, life doesn't stop. It's not really concerned with the pandemic.
Yeah. You don't only get COVID. There's other stuff happening.
Yeah. There's other stuff. Well, it was crazy. Like back when it was really, people are a lot sicker and a lot more sort of present, like in March, April, when we got hit hard, at least in LA, everything else stopped. Our hospital was full with COVID. Our, ICUs were full. They were opening up different sort of makeshift ICUs, if you will, and that kind of thing. But everybody else stopped coming in. And so it was a little disconcerting because we're like, we know the heart attacks and strokes and all those are still there. And you'd see somebody who'd come in 4 days later or something. And
because they were scared to go in, right? They're
scared. People are still scared to come in, and we have a lot better infection controls now, and the incidence is way lower now. And so we have better screening and all that stuff. But it was tough. Now there wasn't as much trauma that started to come back. I mean, when everybody's in their house, there's a lot less people going out to bars and drinking, getting in fights and gunshots and car accidents and all that. That stuff has started to come back. We're just now getting back to where we were sort of pre-COVID, as far as overall volume, and our COVID numbers are now way down. So that's good news. But,
the world keeps moving.
Yeah.
We keep doing what we do, I guess.
The
best we can. It's funny. It's like, that's the one thing that's kind of been just that constant for me, to be able to have music and Mike, you're talking about like, don't catch anybody on a bad time. It sure is nice to have music to retreat to. I don't have to get into any arguments with Beethoven, or anything. It's a nice retreat.
Yeah, my drums don't talk back to me too much. So.
Yeah, not too mumuch. Yeah, my piano, we get into some arguments from time to time for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on now, just work with me a little bit, you know. Yeah, man, but it's a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this during the Alice tours too, that you're trying to find silver linings, and they are there. And
there's tons of them there. They are, yeah.
Yep. And sometimes it comes in the most, strangest of ways. Even for me personally, the fact that, Tosh reached out to me in May about, hey, you want to do some virtual interviews on our tour? And I'm like, what is she talking about? I mean, how does that work? Because that was like the first thing from my mind. And look what that blossomed into. Here we are almost in October, and I've got, like we were talking about numbers, 60, 70 interviews, and I've met so many wonderful guests that I wouldn't have had the chance to otherwise, let alone just being a fan, like a lot of the fans that are in the chat, who got to see Alice play for umpteen times. I mean, that's such a unique experience where if you're a fan, imagine like every night you can just tune in and watch
your favorite band.
Yeah, every time. And it's just like, man, this is such an amazing opportunity and having bands that, because of time zone differences or whatever, you can still make it work, because when you're actually out on the road, you can't have somebody, if you're in LA and then they're not going to fly from New York to play on your bill, but virtually you can make it happen. So it's been really, there have been some good things from this here and there for sure.
Yeah. Mark, you were talking about earlier on with the protests and stuff, how there was a period in there where there was a feeling of almost guilt and we were feeling it too. And I don't know if Justin and Mike, if you were feeling that too, where felt like we were dealing with really big, hard life issues, and working through where music fits in with that. I think at first was a little bit of a challenge. We felt very sort of guilty, like it was almost frivolous. But then you start to work through it and you start to say, no, this is actually healing. This is something that we all really need and identify with. And this is important right now. But I don't know what your experiences were like with that.
The thing I think that I've come to realize is, I think with the issues that came up and continue to exist. It's a I would say it's a multifaceted approach, right? We all can't do it and fight it in the same ways. And for me, I think the thing that I've realized is the best, the one very important thing I can do is just present positivity, bring something positive to the table, just to help people hopefully cope. You can't exist in a world that only feeds you negative things. And and there are people that will do other things. I think it really comes down to the individual to say, I strongly, I have very strong feelings about what's going on, trying to figure out, and I think it'll be a lifelong thing, trying to figure out how best to express it and hopefully contribute something positive to the situation. But it was it was especially difficult back in May and June. And it will continue to be a difficulty,
for sure.
But it's like, man, it has to start on that human level, though. From human to human. Hopefully, we can present that positive change and hopefully being open to each other's perspectives instead of always just shutting it down. I think it feels like we all certainly have things to learn, and hopefully we can all agree that we'll try to do better at learning those things.
No doubt.
Yeah, for sure. It's like there's a couple things, with music. There's the release, obviously. There's the escape, being able to have something positive out there that you can just listen to get away. But there's also the meaning behind it, the certain songs or musicians that help you kind of like push your message out there, or just of that message of hope or something to make a statement, when something really grabs you, when something happens. I know there's certain things that bring me back to a song of my youth or something, I'm like, oh my goodness, it feels like we've been fighting this, or we've been trying to say something about this for years, and people aren't listening. And it, music's not only an escape, but a way to voice in a way that's palatable to other people, that, they're more likely to listen to with a song that they wouldn't listen to if you're just, making some comment on Facebook or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, you can.
So I think not only your own music and bringing that and your voice and what you, post or talk about, but also just, things that you may share that has that message within it, that people are more likely to listen to song.
And just ensuring that it's a genuine thing,
Oh yeah.
sharing that honestly, and not because there's it's the intention that goes behind it too, that does make a difference. But yeah.
No, I agree with that. Like, there's always that fear that you're going to sort of alienate somebody or say sort of the wrong thing. But when it's a genuine voice, when it's your genuine feeling, it's like, that's justified. I mean, and if there is some sort of blowback or something, then it is what it is. But at the same time, I think we're all, very positive people, and we're all sort of very progressive and feel strongly about this stuff. So the more we can sort of express it and be genuine with it, I think people connect with it.
And to empathize with with those people that are feeling that, you can totally understand where that anger is coming from.
Oh yeah.
And being able to empathize and show that empathy doesn't mean you don't always approve of the way it's done, but sometimes it's like, dude, I totally get why you're doing that. I totally get that.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's about listening. Yep.
I can think back to different aspects of the tour for sure, where and I was very vocal about, we're gonna end up talking maybe 10 minutes of my interview just about the pandemic and how are you doing where you're located. I mean, that happened all the time because people needed to do it. They needed to get it out. And depending on how the pre-show talk went, then it kind of told me, well, I can maybe spend a couple of minutes on this and then move to other things, or I better spend like 15 minutes on this because this person really needs to say something and get it out there. And then on the flip side of that too, I remember the interim interview with Brad Chernzia, and that threw me for a loop because I just kind of threw out like, how are you doing during this time? And then he went into these really, really heavy things that he was completely valid to do. But then in my head, I'm like, so do I validate that and we go down that road? Or do I try to steer this back to, more general topics and about his theater background and everything else? And I chose to go down that road for that that 45 minutes. And but it needed to be said. And it was it wasn't easy. It was very hard. It's probably the hardest interview I did the entire time I've been doing these. But it's also one that I'm the most proud of, because it was so genuine and so real and so authentic at the time. And that's something you can't prepare for as an interviewer. I didn't have like a note about if he says this, then say that. It's like, no, I had to just go from myself as a person, as a human being. What do I share? What do I ask? And maybe we're not going to quite agree on certain things, but I still need to listen. I need to hear him out and then see if we can find some kind of, happy middle ground on certain topics. And like we've been saying this during this fun table, that I think people just aren't doing that enough. They're choosing to just take their side, dig their heels in, and just kind of be done with it. It's like, then you don't know what the other person's saying. How do we get to this? We can't move forward. If you're dug in on this side and I'm dug in on this side, then we're just going to stay divided the entire time. It's just going to get worse. And like what Justin's saying, he's very, very truthful about this. He has a very positive approach to everything he's been doing social media wise when I've had a chance to briefly to talk with them. And it's also a reminder to me that, because sometimes I become a negative Nelly. I'll be honest about that. If I'm having a bad day and it's just kind of weighing on me, like, God, this went wrong and this went wrong and this went wrong. And then I have to remind myself, like, wait a minute, there's a lot of other things that are good, and don't forget that. And again, during a pandemic, it can be hard to remember that kind of thing. And I don't have other people to bounce it off of. So, I mean, I live by myself. So there could be a day where I don't actually physically see anyone. Like right now, I've been in isolation. So I'm back to what it was like back in March when I was like really sick. And it's just like, it messes with your head a bit. And then if you're dealing with social media, it's like, you know what? I need to know when to unplug. I need to know when to recharge, and then make sure that I'm staying on the path that I know I want to be on. which is the positive path, the right path, instead of being like a lot of these other folks that are out there. There's like, I don't know how you, even like last Friday when I was doing this fun table and I mentioned, you know, we had 1 or 2 trolls come through. I was like, do you not have anything better to do on a Friday night than to come in here and put some kind of goofy comment about, I think one was about white folks and one was about we need to talk about music and whatever else. I'm just like, okay, this is just ridiculous. That and you see those people all over social media. You know, that's all they do. They're contrarian to be contrarian. And it's like, wow, that's a sad life to live. In my opinion.
Yeah, it's
We're
easy
slow learners
to do those things when people can be anonymous, but that's when it's addressed, you know, openly. I think, you know, sort of ignoring it is not the way. You know, we felt that too during that tour. We wanted to talk about it and address it and play songs we felt were relevant and you know, and we shot a music video that really sort of addressed it head on. And it's a little scary to sort of enter that space, but at the same time, it's like, no, you know what? Like you said, Justin, if it's coming from an authentic place, then you
can stand by it.
Yeah, you can stand by it.
And take that. It definitely makes it easier, I think, to deal with detractors or folks that don't necessarily agree with that perspective.
Right.
Because it's like, well, I'm sharing something that's very deep within me, and I don't have to feel. I mean, it always sucks.
It's not for
to
everybody.
Have people disagree. But it's
okay.
like, at least I know that this is something I do. I'm willing to meet that head on, you know, as opposed to getting that and you're not even sure if that's really how you feel, or you know, or why did I even do this in the first place? It's like, no, because you felt that, you know. Man, it's we certainly have a long way to go. Something that I've been thinking about in my own development is, I think, always having that hope in myself. I think because it's like there's plenty of room for regret and there's plenty of room for doubt and worry, and it's like okay, but the thing that I can hope in is that I can get better, you know what I mean? I can do better tomorrow, or you know, that kind of thing. Like it's not over, you know. The journey isn't over, and I guess on a larger scale too, it's like if we continue to share and hopefully engender better listening skills in general. You know, we can have some hope, but we're very slow learners in general, just all over the board. It takes a while for us to get the point, I guess.
Well, and I know the word's been said during this session, and I used to say it a lot during the interviews with Alice, that to me it's always about intention. You know, what is your intention behind what you're doing and why you're doing it? For what, even if I don't agree with it. So if I can kind of understand where you're coming from, I still may not agree with it, but at least I understand it instead of just completely dismissing it. And oh, Tony, no worries that you missed that. I dealt with that person pretty sharply. What is that sound?
That's right.
Oh,
my ice.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's always like, because we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to, like, you know, Justin just said, you know, maybe be a little bit slow learning on some things. But if your intention's behind it, you'll eventually get there. So at least you can understand why you're doing something, versus people that don't have any intention and they're just kind of flying off the seat, you know, by the seat of their pants, and who knows what comes out of their mouth. Then, you know, I question those folks. But even then, I have to kind of listen. Why are they saying that? What's going on with that person? I've worked with so many different populations over the years, from special needs and at risk and gang involved, all the way to gifted and all these other types of folks, that I have to try to put myself in their shoes. And that's so hard to do sometimes, when I can't understand, like, why are you asking me for the 10th time how to do this problem, you know, in my class or something? And then I have to realize that maybe they never got diagnosed as dyslexic or something like that. And I need to be the catalyst to start that process. But it's so easy to jump on it. Or if you see something physically happen with a student, it's like, why are they cussing all the time? Or why are they, like, you know, trying to hit somebody? It's like they actually have an actual condition for that. But it's been you know, an interesting process through all of those kind of things. And I don't know what that has to do with. I don't have a point.
But one thing I was thinking about in terms of, you know, with the troll situation, or just online bad behavior, I guess you could call it. is in most cases, not in every case, but in most cases, I found the internet can be a pretty self-corrective environment, where, I've already kind of wondered what would happen, say if people that don't know who I am or my situation, happen upon one of my streams or something like that. And I'm just waiting for like, well, who does he think he is wearing sunglasses inside? Because I'm not putting it out there like, oh, and you're tuning into blind jazz pianist, just like, and that kind of thing may happen. And then it's like, well, somebody would just be like, oh man, he's blind, that's why he's wearing the sun. Like it's something that I don't even have to really address myself, which is kind of, it can be a cool thing that, as many bad actors there are good people that help, balance the scales in a lot of these situations.
I mean, we have a couple, one or two. I mean, it's pretty rare, but a couple of trolls, whatever. And boy, we've figured out how to sort of keep them off our stream. But, for instance, we did an online festival, with a whole bunch of different bands, and we weren't hosting it. And sure enough, there they were, and they started. And boy, our fans, Captain Blackwood, oh man, they were, and some of the other guys, woo, they let them know. It was awesome. It was awesome to see it. We were like, yes, corrective behavior there.
That's it, man. There's good folks that'll fight the good fight.
Yeah, it's funny because in our business of selling skydiving gear, I mean, we've become well known for our customer service and all our education within skydiving and skydiving gear. And every once in a while, we'll have someone that has a bad experience or they feel like they weren't treated right, even though we're like bending over backwards. And they'll go, oh, I'm going to, post this on whatever. I'm like, hey, if you want to, that's fine. But I'm telling you, we're going to help you out. And they'll post it about how horrible Shooting Star was. And all of a sudden, you see all the Shooting Star fans coming out of the woodwork. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, you're like, you'll just need to talk to them. They're going to help you out. They all help everyone out. So it's like, it's great to see the people that know who you really are come to your defense. That means so much more than you saying it, having your fans say it.
Oh, it's touching. We're like, I mean, it really touched us in a big way. We're like, wow, we got, people looking out for us. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just that there's all kinds. That's what I've definitely learned in New York too, because I think New York tends to get a bad rep. They're like, oh man, people are so mean in New York, or this, whatever. But I spent 10 years on and off living in Brooklyn and then in Manhattan, and it's like, no, it's not. It's just more condensed. There's just more of everything. It's not that it's like any better or any worse. It's just a very small area where like millions and millions of people live on top of each other, and it's just like with where anywhere you go in the States or in the world, it's like the greatest and the worst, all in that area. And I mean, I really found some of the most helpful people while getting lost in New York. I'm like, they might be kind of brusque about it, just kind of take me and say, come on, let me get you across the street, and then they go off and do their own thing. But I was like, oh, but they still helped, didn't make a big deal about it. It's just kind of funny, just realizing, it's just all kinds. And then the internet is the same thing. It's all kinds, and thankfully there are those good folks that help reassure us, I think, and keep that hope alive in humanity. Yeah, man.
But like when you run into it, like you were saying, Mark, earlier, I mean, that's another thing. We see it in the ER a lot. People are belligerent and coming at you, and the idea that you can't take it personally and that you have to, in some ways, get into their shoes, like you were saying, Mark. I mean, imagine what it's like to be somebody who's really angry like that and who has that, like, and it's like you develop a little compassion for them in that sense. They're spitting fire at you, and you're like, man, I feel for you in this moment. You're angry about something here, so let's get to it. Listening.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, I don't know. I remember I had a student that came down on a Monday morning, and we used to have, this is an old style TV with a VCR connected to it when they were built together, and it was on a like a TV tray thing, a mobile TV tray. And he came down, and he was so pissed about something, and he knocked that whole thing over. You know, the TV broke, and there's glass everywhere, and other students are coming down into the room like, "What happened there?" and all this kind of thing. And then he went to some other part of the building, so I had to go find him and see. One, is he safe, and then two, we had to deal with this mess and all these kind of things. And you find out, he had a real horrible incident with his mom that morning.
Yeah.
And which I won't talk about here, but if I could have easily just jumped all over him, got mad and angry about it and upset. It's like, no, something's going on with this guy, because he would not just come in on a Monday after a weekend and just shove something over. He needed to talk to somebody, and that was his way of saying, I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I'm going to knock this over.
Yeah.
And
no doubt.
it's like, hey, you got my attention, so let's see what's going on and what I can do to make it better.
No doubt.
But
That's it. That's it.
And just I was going to ask you too, because you might have encountered this some of the time, because someone might see you walking down the street, and they might think that they might assume what your ethnic background is. And see, and then because your mom's Asian, correct?
Mm-hmm. My mom is Japanese. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're half Japanese, and then half
my dad European.
Yeah.
I think Swedish, German. It's a nice mix, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, my my neighbor is Chinese, and we were at the beginning of pandemic. We were going for walks. I live close to the beach, so we walk on the boardwalk, and I couldn't help starting to feel a little bit nervous while we were walking around, especially when COVID just broke out, and folks, especially with the Chinese. And I said, "Oh, we're walking around here looking a little suspect, I hope nobody's thinking we brought it over." It's just like, one of my favorite incidences were, I guess we were still out, and so just the news was going on. But I was out with buddies at a bar. And I have this, you called it a hoppy coat that my mom had picked up for me, while she was in Tokyo a few years back. So I like wearing that around. It's very comfortable, but it definitely looks very Japanese. So I'm wearing my hoppy coat, and my buddy called me on the phone. He's like, what are you up to? And I'm like, man, I'm sitting in this bar, and I got this hoppy coat, and I'm drinking a Corona. Like, everything feels so wrong. Oh man, it's all wrong. But besides that, I've not really encountered too much, regarding looking slightly Asian or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I only bring that up because I think some people don't realize that, and then they could even be saying something in your presence, thinking that you're fully Caucasian, and maybe it's something disparaging, what have you. For my own self, especially once I got better in April and May, I definitely had some issues with folks saying some pretty nasty things to me, being Asian, related to COVID. So those are those things that would step me onto this path of like, I need to get back and turn my path back around, because at 7:00 I need to be live with somebody. But my head would be like, I'd be upset about it, to be a bit emotional about it, because normally around here in this area, I don't encounter that kind of thing pre-pandemic. But and knock on wood, I have not had that in months. But that period of time, it was pretty apparent. Anytime I went out somewhere, there'd be someone either glaring at me or had the balls to actually say something to my face. And then me being who I am, I would say something back to them, because I'm not going to put up with that. And then I have to catch myself again. I come back to my home, and like, I got to find my happy space. I got to find my center. I got to get back to where I'm at, because now they got me off my game. For all the wrong reasons. So,
it's tough. It's tough. I think for me, it's really been more of really the sunglasses. Are something that I always hope gives people the indication. If you see a fella walking into a room with a cane and a pair of sunglasses, I hope you're able to make that connection. Like, oh, he can't see, right? But there's been a lot of situations where it's just that uncomfortable thing where, what do you think you're doing? Coming in here at nighttime with your sunglasses on. You think you're so cool? And it's just like, No,
must be
I
some
don't.
satisfaction.
I
Just
don't.
being
I
like,
really.
well, as a matter of fact.
No, I'm just like I really don't think I'm cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that.
I was
I don't
hoping you
think I'm
get it.
cool.
You know, I was
Yeah.
trying to give you a little indication of what my situation is. And it's
Right.
sometimes it's gotten very uncomfortable. And yeah, it does take you out of your element. And those things are the things that you learn from. The more it's happened, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened enough that I've been able to learn from that and just say, man, that's cool if he hadn't made that connection and made some sometimes offensive remarks or things like that. It certainly is something that I've learned. It happens, and you move on. And sometimes it's harder to do. But the gift of actually trying to live in that present moment means whatever just happened, it's gone. And if I carry it, that's something that's only affecting me after that point.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, this interaction is something I'm carrying with me next week, and that person has no idea. They've forgotten completely about whatever that encounter was. So it's like it's gone. We move on. Hopefully, I learned to not react as negatively to it, and try to say, "Oh, actually, this is the situation," or, And then when I was walking around with my guide dog, Candy, the types of things that would occur in that situation. Everybody has opinions about everything, and there's certain people that are not happy with folks having guide dogs, for whatever reason. And so you encounter those kind of situations, and thankfully most people do like dogs, or and are cool with the situation. But it certainly is. Everything is a wonderful. What I like to say after I've calmed down and I've had a cup of coffee or whatever is it is a wonderful learning experience, because those things just don't go away either. Hopefully I'll handle it better next time. And it's misunderstanding. And it's also fear of the unfamiliar, I think, that usually cause those types of interactions, and a lot of it is just, they don't know.
Yeah. It's not about you; it's about them. It's about where their perspective is on it. So
it's like, we'll move on. We still got stuff to do.
Yes, we do.
We still got stuff to do.
And Justin, you mentioned that Candy's enjoying her retirement years with your parents. Is there plans to have a new service dog down the road, or
man, no? You know what? With pandemic the way it is, oh wait, I'm not in any hurry. My main objective is to figure out how to get back home to see the girl. That's my main thing. It's been, I saw her just before this. I was back at home doing some performances in Virginia. So the last time I saw her was beginning of February. So this is the longest, period of time that I've been away from her. And so that's all I'm really thinking about. A new dog? Ugh, don't even mention that. I can't let Candy hear that. You know what I mean? I'm not cheating on you, girl. But it's kind of like I've really come to realize that for me, I was never really like so uncomfortable using the cane before getting the guide dog. That is something that I feel pretty good about. I can get around and my independence is decent enough. The reason I did get her was because living in New York for the first few years was quite overwhelming. So it was nice to have somebody to get lost with, if that makes sense, and also just be like, oh, Candy, it was your fault. It's your fault where we got off the wrong, we're on the wrong train or this or that,
Wow.
It's just funny to have that companion to make it feel a little less intimidating.
Sure.
But then, we got over that, and I absolutely loved every minute of it. Having that companion, having that buddy, and also she did a great job dodging people and weaving in and out. I actually took that for granted, because then when I went back to the can, I'm thinking there's a whole lot more obstacles that I did not know were there. She did a wonderful job.
Good girl.
But
How many
yeah,
did you have? How many years was she active with you?
I got her back in 2009. So we did a good at least almost 10 years that we were working together.
How was
she's
that
gonna be,
experience, like getting to know her and how that all worked?
I was a mess.
Yeah.
I had never had a dog before. So it was twofold, I think, getting used to being guided by an animal and trusting it.
Hmm.
And also just learning how to be an owner of a dog. I remember I would call the school and be like, she's panting a lot. What do I do? And they're like, it's hot outside. That's what dogs do. Cool it, chill out. I was a mess, just trying to get adjusted to that. But it's an experience like no other. The kind of they talk about it, and I was kind of like, okay, all right, about the bond that is formed. But it's like, this is the one relationship that when we were together 24/7. There was no break. There was no time when she wasn't by my side, whether I was sleeping or whether I was awake or whatever.
She's constantly working.
Wow.
When we're outside of the home, of course she can be an idiot when we're home. The harness is off, and she's a very goofy dog. She's a black lab, so how those can be. But it was the first time, and then the first time I had to be away from her for whatever reason, I had to leave her at home, and especially with New York, some of the places are just so small that it's almost counterintuitive to bring the dog, because there's nowhere for the dog to go. And I just remember being like, just so lost, like I don't have her with me. I couldn't remember a time when she wasn't there. Even though, of course, there was a time. Most of my life was without her. But yeah, it's a special type of thing that happens. I'm very grateful for that. I think she's taught me a lot about empathy, to be honest. If I could actually grow up to be more like how she is,
that's right.
Without even trying, she's so loving. She's so non-judgmental. She's so, when I was living in New York, and anybody who came through that door in my apartment got the best greeting ever. And it's always like, oh my gosh, Candy loves me so much. And I'm sitting there thinking like, nah, she's good. She gives everybody that reaction, but the fact that, making every person that comes through that door feel that special. It's like, man, that is a gift. Yeah. It's a gift.
No doubt.
I don't know that yet.
I'd seen a special a few years ago on guide dogs, and just that's intense just to get to the point that they could actually help someone. I mean, the training and what they have to just to be accepted into that type of, it's insane. I mean, they've got to be special
good.
Dog. Yeah. Such a special dog.
I tell you what, man, it's killer. And one thing that's been funny for me after kind of deciding to leave her at home more often, I would be doing maybe some phone interviews before some of the gigs for press or promo or whatever, and talking. I remember talking to one of the club owners, and he's like, yeah, and we're all ready for Candy. We got a steak just for her. And I was like, oh man, she's retired. She's staying at home. And he goes, the gig is off. Don't come. and I couldn't help but being like, you know what? I understand.
That's awesome.
I know that she has been the draw. Most people just want to see the dog. They don't want to hear any piano.
That's
Candy has her own rider. That's awesome.
Oh man, you know what? People were telling me.
Medium rare.
Yeah.
Medium rare, baby. Yeah. Got it. I mean, honestly, that's one thing I wish I had done, is say like there needs to be a little doggy bed, by the piano, at least, so she can be comfy.
Heck yeah.
Not sitting on the hardwood floor, because she would do that. She'd get up and sort of make a fuss if it wasn't very comfortable, and she had to lie down for too long. It's like we're half an hour into the show, and it's like, looks like the set's over. The dog is like looking at the door like it's time to go.
This will be your last song, Justin.
yeah. It's real life. She's a good audience, good critic. She's not into it. She's not feeling it today.
That's awesome.
Oh, and I know, Justin, you were saying that like for the longest time that Quincy Jones has not called you Justin. He called you Candyman because of Candy.
Oh no, that is my name. Yeah, that is my name, and it gets uncomfortable sometimes when he'll walk into a room and just yell Candyman, and people are like, "What?" And he also she's very loving, and she's just she's a wonderful dog, and she likes to hang, right? She likes to just be sprawled out and have everybody petting her, and so he saw her just being super comfortable while we were visiting him, and getting all kinds of loving from bunch of people. So Quincy says, Candy, man. Oh, Candy, she's a pimp. And so that's also another thing that sometimes needs clarification. They said, no, I'm not a pimp. My dog is just a very, very, loving girl. Just knows how to get that attention. Yeah, Candy Man. That's it.
Candy.
Awesome. Hey, so how's everybody doing on time? I know, Steve, you said you got to go to work tonight.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's right.
It's been 2 hours, so I don't know if we're good for a little bit longer or you need to go, or how are people? And Mike, you're on the East Coast, so it's past midnight for you.
Oh man, yeah.
I've been up for a while, so.
Yeah, I probably need to sort of wind down at least fairly shortly here. I still have some work I got to do before the shift too. So.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
got the shift. Got the tour to get ready for.
Yeah, I gotta
pack your bags, man. Make sure you got all your chargers, man. Important. Oh man,
exactly, right.
I'm gonna be so out of practice actually when it comes back to getting back on the road and be like, I forgot everything.
I know, right?
The toiletry brag, man. I just have to go ahead and get it stocked now while I remember. That's always the stuff that inevitably happens.
Oh yeah, it takes practice. I mean, all that heavy lifting of gear too. We always joke about. We're like, we get tour strength, carrying up gear upstairs, and
no kidding. With that stuff, yeah.
Many city blocks, sometimes. So we're like, we need to, unload the van just for,
practice, load it out, load it back in.
Exactly. Workout program, musician workout program.
That's it, man. There's certain things that are tough, about the road travel, but also definitely things that I never thought I would miss it as much as I do. Some of those really awesome aspects that sometimes you forget because it is grueling, and there is no sleep, and
right.
But just those experiences that happen, especially being overseas and being able to really experience all these different cities, and especially when you get to go back to certain places. I've really come to fall in love with Copenhagen, Denmark in general, and that's something I never would have been able to learn, without getting over there and traveling and playing, getting to know the folks. Do you have any kind of like favorite spots to hit when you guys do go out on the road?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, so many little spots. I mean, we all have our own individual just favorite little venues and these kinds of things. I mean, one of the things that we love to do is that has almost become like a game with us is we try and time it becomes the setup that we really get into it, and being as efficient as possible with our setup and like hitting the stopwatch and going. Like we joke that the longer we go in the tour, we stop even thinking. I mean, we think about the music, but it becomes more a challenge where we're like, okay, we got to get our time down. We got the stopwatch going, and we sort of preset everything as best we can, and it becomes this efficiency. Gordon's very into like, unpacking the van, how exactly where it's at. It's all these little games we play with ourselves. So we do miss that aspect of it. And of course, all these yeah, I mean, so many different little cities and venues that we've grown to love, you know.
The weird kind of homecoming feeling.
Yes.
Is kind of
you
cool.
see people show up, yeah, and also getting
Hey,
to stay
man.
with people, you know, where a lot of times if we can, we'll stay with people that we know as opposed to hotels or whatever. But and it's so great to you know, have that home cooked meal and just get to just come back, and I don't know, there's a very homey feeling about it, so it's great.
Before I started traveling, that was the best advice I got from my teacher. And actually, who was his wife. So Clark Terry is a trumpeter, and he lived on the road. But she had told me, she goes, now when you start traveling, your main objective is to make friends.
Yeah.
And the reason is for that exact thing. To when you get off the plane, there's somebody to pick you up that you know. They'll bring you. You'll get a nice meal, and you're also, that gives you something to look forward to.
For sure.
When you go back to that area, as opposed to it's just like, here's another city that we're at, and here's another venue, because people are like, oh man, it must be amazing on the road, and I'm like, well, I mean, I guess if you like Holiday Inn, that's all we generally see, you know. And then we get into some sort of fight with the sound man at sound check, and then you know, then we do the gig, and sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's trash, you know. It varies, but it's like, the reality sometimes can be a little less glamorous.
Yeah, it's also fun seeing the same sound people too.
True. And you're like,
hey man, and they're like, oh yeah, we remember last year. We did this and that. You're like, that's really fun.
It's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
Awesome. Well, hey, so for those out there that want to check out Justin, it's on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific when he's doing his live stream, and also on Sundays at noon. Is that correct, Justin?
That's right. Yeah.
Doing your hymns. And I've seen his live streams, and they're really inspirational and fun, and also just really pleasant. If you're looking for something to kind of mellow you out, I think that's going to be what the doctor ordered. No pun intended, Steve.
I'm gonna write this down. Where can we find the stream? I want to. Now I'm sold. I want to see it.
Hey, it's I have it on my YouTube channel. It's just Justin Kauflin, just my name. Okay. And so I go to YouTube and Facebook.
Okay. Awesome.
And I like to say, just think of me as something going on in the background while you're washing dishes or something. You know. We're just hanging out, making music, and hopefully it's something that you like to hear, but no pressure, and yeah, that's the vibe. We're chilling.
Come up with some requests.
Hey man, go ahead, man. Hit me with them too, man. Take it into left field, man. Maybe it requires the profit, so I got to get it out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll do some Alice covers, man. It might be kind of cool. I'm trying to figure it out.
That would be awesome.
Make it happen.
I can tell you, though, with having Captain Blackwood and Tony and Dusty and all the other Alice fans, they're probably thinking of some songs right now, Justin, that they're going to be sending your way.
Actually, please do. That's what we're here for, man. That's what we're here for. That's great.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you, Dusty. Awesome. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. And obviously, most people, if you're watching this, if you're not in the chat, that Alice is going back on the virtual road for the chapter 3 on October 8th. So that's getting geared up in just less than 2 weeks now, because it would have been 2 weeks as of yesterday. And then, Mike, anything you want to plug, throw out there before we say goodnight?
You can just check out my Instagram under Mike's Drum Tracking and some of the recent videos and stuff up there. That'd be awesome.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. So Steve, Mike, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. This was awesome. This was just exactly what I wanted it to be. Just hanging out, having a good conversation. And I hardly coughed at all. Everybody in the chat, from Sasha and Tosh to Captain Blackwood, Dusty, Tony. I know Kazi was in there earlier. My friend Ken showed up earlier. Thank you for watching. And those that aren't in the chat but are watching this, again, thank you tonight. And stay safe where you're at. Have a good weekend. And we'll see everybody when we see you, okay?
Awesome.
Great talking to you guys.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks,
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Steve. See ya.
Yeah, see you guys.